So Topuria will be moving up to 155 pounds and will be vacating the featherweight title.
Alright, so Dana White just went live last night on Instagram to do one of his famous fight announcements from the comfort of his office via vertical video, but to this guy's credit, he actually dropped bombshell after bombshell. And without a doubt, the biggest announcement that he gave to us is that ILIA Topuria has officially vacated his featherweight title and is moving up to lightweight.
Alex Volkanovski will be taking on number 3 ranked Diego Lopez for the vacant UFC featherweight title. Topuria has felt like he's done all that he can in that division, and he feels like he's cemented his legacy, and his body cannot make the weight anymore. So Topuria will be moving up to 155 pounds and will be vacating the featherweight title. So the way that this works is, as soon as the first punch is thrown in this fight, the title is vacated. And we will announce what Topuria's next fight will be when we get it done. So Volkanovski versus Lopez, headlining a badass stacked card.
This is an insane move out of Topuria that I absolutely did not think was going to happen as soon as it did. And of course, we've all heard him say that he wants to fight Islam Makhachev for the lightweight belt, but speaking for myself here, I didn't think that that would involve relinquishing his belt entirely to make a permanent move to 155. This is a crazy turn of events, and it really does flip the UFC featherweight division upside down in a massive way. After his win over Max Holloway, I seriously felt like we were going to see ILIA successfully defend his featherweight title for a long time. And as you heard from Dana, Alexander Volkanovski is going to be fighting Diego Lopez for the vacant title at UFC 314, and that is for sure going to be a great fight where I can actually really see Volk winning. To tell you the truth, now that ILIA is no longer running the show at 145, I feel like it's much more of an even playing field amongst the current lineup in that division. As much as I like Diego Lopez, I can't help but root for Volk to win, but regardless of who comes out on top, there's going to be tough fights around every corner. And I don't know if there's a guy at featherweight who I can see dominating the division now that ILIA's vacated the belt. Which leads me to the big question that I'm sure everyone's asking: who is going to be ILIA's first fight at lightweight? The obvious answer, of course, is getting an immediate title shot against Islam, which would automatically be the biggest fight of the year, assuming Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall doesn't happen in 2025. But I will raise you a scenario. What if the UFC is planning on doing Jones versus Aspinall as well as Makhachev versus Topuria for International Fight Week? But let's assume that for whatever reason, Dana and Hunter Campbell want to make ILIA fight a lightweight contender before giving him a crack at Islam. I wouldn't really agree with them doing that, but let's just entertain the idea of it really quickly. Seeing as the lightweight division has guys like Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler, Renato Moicano, and Paddy Pimblett, ILIA does not have a shortage of exciting matchups. In my opinion, I feel like you just give him Islam Makhachev for the International Fight Week pay-per-view card, but if the UFC is insistent on making him get a win before giving him a title shot, then I say pair him up with Charles Oliveira. With all this being said though, how well do I think Topuria is going to do as a full-time lightweight? I think he's going to do really well, but I'm pretty doubtful that he can take out Makhachev. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that ILIA can be a solid top 5 contender at lightweight, but I don't know, man. For as good as the featherweight division is, I feel like lightweight is a bit higher in terms of its level of competition. For example, if the UFC matched him up against Tsarukyan, Oliveira, or Gaethje, then I feel like Topuria has a pretty good chance at beating Charles and Justin, but honestly, I'm not sure if I would pick him to beat Arman. It's hard to say because we have so little data of ILIA fighting at lightweight besides his fight against Jai Herbert, but we have so much data of him destroying featherweights. Don't get me wrong, I really want to see Topuria succeed in this new weight class because I've been a big believer in him since he entered the UFC, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that he can be a top dog at 155. But even if he does blow Arman, Charles, or Justin out of the water, call me crazy, but I just don't think that he's going to be able to beat Islam. Okay, I think that's all my thoughts on ILIA moving up in weight, but Dana actually had a lot more announcements other than that, so let's talk about those really quickly.
There is a 5-round co-main event between number 7 ranked Michael Chandler and number 12 ranked Paddy Pimblett.
Now, this is a really solid fight, and it's for sure going to be fun. But do I really think that Chandler versus Pimblett is an ideal co-main event for a big pay-per-view card like UFC 314? Yes and no, but that doesn't really matter. I feel like Dana's finally given up on the Michael Chandler science experiment that he's been doing, and I do get the feeling that he's hoping that Paddy gets the win here so that he can prop him up even more as a rising star. And fortunately for Dana, I can see Pimblett walking away with the win in this fight. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for Paddy because Michael hasn't been an easy fight for anybody in the UFC thus far, but I can can definitely see him winning by submission. I'm still pretty doubtful about Paddy overall, both as a fighter and as a pay-per-view draw, but to his credit, he has improved a lot since the Jared Gordon fight. He is going to be significantly bigger than Chandler, and as we all know, Chandler has some of the lowest fight IQ in the UFC, so I am leaning Paddy in this one. Pimblett better look out though. If he's not careful, Chandler might knock him out via punches to the back of the head.
Number 4 ranked, Yair Rodriguez, and my boys are telling me there's been some talk out on the internet about this one. Patricio Pitbull at featherweight.
Okay, solid fight. I always like to see Yair step into the ring. If you've been following PFL news lately, which I totally understand why you wouldn't be, then you'll know that Patricio Pitbull's been literally begging to be released from the PFL for months now. I think it's a great signing. At one point, Pitbull was seen by many fans as the best fighter not in the UFC, but I don't think that that's the case in 2025. I mean, if the UFC was able to sign him back in like 2016, that would have been ideal, but now that he's turning 38 in July, I'm really doubtful if he's going to be a serious contender in the UFC. Nonetheless, he does make featherweight a lot more fun, and I do think that fighting Yair is a perfect debut fight for him. I do think that Rodriguez wins by decision, but I'm kind of hoping that Pitbull proves me wrong.
London's main event on March 22nd, live from the O2 Arena. The original fight was supposed to be Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena. Now it's going to be number 1 ranked Leon Edwards versus number 5 ranked Sean Brady. Number 1 ranked former champ Leon Edwards will be taking on Sean Brady, who has an impressive 17-1 record. His only loss is to the champ, Bilal Muhammad. And I'll fill you in on where Jack's going here in a minute.
Not gonna lie, I think that this is pretty disappointing. Edwards versus Brady is still a good fight, I guess, but I was definitely more excited to see Edwards fight JDM. Because at least with JDM as an opponent, we were going to see some really technical striking from both sides, and I also think that JDM had the striking style to be able to pressure Leon and force him to throw more volume instead of his regular playbook of hanging back and countering. And now that Brady's been slotted in to replace JDM, I feel like we know exactly how this fight is going to look. It's either going to be Leon defending the takedowns and fighting Brady at range, or it's going to be Brady grinding out a decision win with his wrestling. But I think that I'm going to pick Brady, assuming he doesn't let Edwards get comfortable in the octagon. I don't know though, this one's hard.
UFC 315 on May 10th, live from the Bell Center in Montreal, Canada. The main event will be Bilal Muhammad, his first title defense, against, what was I just talking about? Number 4 ranked Jack Della Maddalena. We tried multiple times to put together the Bilal Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, but Rakhmonov is injured. So as soon as Rakhmonov's healthy again, we'll get him back in there, and obviously he'll probably be first in line to fight whoever wins that the Jack Della versus Bilal fight.
Yeah, definitely a fortunate turn of events for JDM, but the thing is, I just don't see him winning this fight, man. That's not to say I don't want him to win, because that's not true at all. I would much rather see JDM as champion over Bilal, but I just think that he's going to get out-wrestled, plain and simple. Obviously, JDM has the striking advantage, but Bilal and his team are too smart and too good at game planning, and Bilal is so risk-averse where I'm positive that he's going to keep the fight standing as little as possible. I'll be stoked if JDM can pull off the upset win, but I fully expect Bilal to grind out yet another decision win for his first title defense.
Now, the co-main event on this card, the number 1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Valentina Shevchenko, will face number 5 ranked Manon Fiorot for the flyweight title.
Look, I like Valentina, and I spent a lot of years rooting for her in her fights, but it's gotten to the point where it's so boring to have her as champion. It doesn't help that her most recent win over Grasso was painfully boring, so it's just hard for me to get excited to see her defending the belt again. I don't know, man. I'm gonna pick Fiorot to win this one, but even if she does win, they're just going to give Valentina an immediate rematch, so what does it even matter?
Also on the card, we have number 8 ranked Gilbert Burns versus 17-0 undefeated Michael Morales.
This is a good fight. The UFC clearly wants to set up Michael Morales as a rising contender with a win against the old and slow Gilbert Burns, and I think they're going to get exactly what they were hoping for. Michael's too big and too fast for Gilbert in his current form, and I can see him winning by TKO.
And we announced yesterday Alexa Graza is taking on Natalia Silva.
I didn't even want to include this one because of how little I care about this fight, but I know that you guys are going to comment on it if I didn't, so here it is. Alexa's good, Natalia's good, they're both good fighters. I just have such little interest in this fight. Alexa by decision. Anyways, that is the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about ILIA vacating the featherweight belt. Do you think that he should fight Islam for the lightweight title immediately, or would you like him to prove himself against a contender first? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
At some point, I will connect that punch, and everything will depend on what God will decide. If he wants to go, if he wants to send Islam to sleep or not, who knows that? I know that.
Didn't you say you want to submit him?
Yeah, I can also submit him. To be honest, I always say that I represent the new generation of mixed martial arts, and what that means. Before, you were seeing a guys in MMA, they were good in striking and maybe in wrestling, but their ground game wasn't that good. Or you see a guy who has a phenomenal ground game, he has a phenomenal striking, but his wrestling sucks. In my case, I'm good everywhere. So you can take me everywhere and I'm going to feel comfortable. They used to say, like, I'm going to take you to the deep water. I was born in the deep water.